Live from Las Vegas, it is Tort Talk with Joe Fantini, Marc, and myself, John Robinson. Today, we're doing it live from MTMP. We've got Seth Crompton of Crompton Pencoast, who's going to talk to us about Roundup. We're going to do this as close to 10 minutes as possible and give everybody the boots on the ground insight into what's going on in this litigation. Thanks for joining us, Seth.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you guys having me here to talk about an important case.
Thanks for, coming on and talking about Roundup. We just had it in our power rankings as #1. So this is one of the legacy torts we've been talking about for a while. Marc, what are some of the things here that you're most interested in getting out of Seth, kind of the man on the ground in this litigation?
We've seen a lot of movement happening, and it seems like there's a lot of momentum going into 2026. So what's going on with the case today? Kind of what's your boots on the ground? What are you seeing right now?
A lot of the litigation is kind of centered in Missouri. There's a large number of cases in St. Louis County, a fewer number of cases in St. Louis City because of our venue rules. We won't get into all that. And then there are, for a period of time, filings in Cole County, which is where our actual state capital sits. And so what kind of switched those venues around was initially Monsanto had its registered agent in St. Louis County. And so any out-of-state plaintiff would have had to file where the registered agent is. About, I can't remember exactly, sometime 21, 22, they switched to Cole County. And so all the plaintiffs started filing in Cole County. And then 2024, they moved the registered agent back to St. Louis County. So again, the filings going forward have mostly been in St. Louis County since then. There are some other kind of venues around if they're Missouri-specific plaintiffs across the state, but I would say that when you talk about there being tens of thousands of cases in the state of Missouri, they're mostly concentrated in St. Louis County and Cole County.
And that's really good insight, and a lot of people don't know that, but I know you filed cases in all 3 of those counties. Did they do that because they thought they could get a more favorable venue? Is that what you think kind of led to that?
So kind of amusingly, and they said it in open court one time, one of the lawyers from Monsanto actually said that that was an accident to move it to Cole County. I don't necessarily believe that was an accident. Those are big firms and big corporations. I think things were backing up in St. Louis County. They moved it to Cole County, which they thought may be a more favorable venue for them. And then there was a big verdict in Cole County, which everyone heard about, the $1 billion verdict. And then sometime around then, it gets moved back to St. Louis County. So they're clearly trying to move cases around where they think that they're best postured for the litigation.
Missouri's been a pretty plaintiff-friendly venue. I know we like to go there for a bunch of different cases, but in the Roundup litigation specifically, we only have about 4,500 cases left in the MDL. How many cases do you think we have in Missouri State Court right now? I'm hearing 30,000?
I would say 30 to 40,000 probably all told across the state.
Yeah, and so I know we talked, John and Marc, some reports recently about some inventory settlements.
Yep.
Could you just kind of fill in everybody, like what is an inventory settlement?
So an inventory settlement generally focuses on one firm. So one firm will go in and resolve their set of cases directly with Monsanto. It doesn't involve anybody else's cases or anything like that. It's just their own specific inventory. And there was a bigger inventory settlement that we kind of heard about recently. And then across the country, there have been other settlements as cases have come up for trial. I mean, not just in the Missouri area, but it's kind of been across the country. But there was a more recent inventory settlement. So kind of interesting to see where things are headed, going into next year as we come to the end of 2025, crazy enough already.
Yeah, so that, shows us that they're resolving cases. I think the report was maybe 17,000 cases, so a pretty big inventory. And then he talked a little bit about these trial setting cases, and they're settling the cases one off before they, get to the jury. So in Missouri, where pretty much all of the action's centered now, what's the trial docket looking like? Are there any more the rest of 25, or we got to wait till 26?
I think most of the stuff you will see coming up is 26. 26 is pretty heavily scheduled. There's probably about 6 or 7 cases set for trial between early in the year and the spring. I think you're going to see quite a bit of action on the Roundup early in the year.
How many do you think we're going to get through before there's a global?
I don't know. It depends how bad the first couple go.
Yeah, but next year is interesting in the sense of, there's a lot of things are going to come to a head next year, right? You know, the tort obviously ages. We talk about it as a tort, but, you know, at the end of the day, there are individual people in there and their cases age. You know, they want their cases done at some point too. But, you know, we have things like the Solicitor General looking at it. You have the EPA looking at things. We're always kind of hearing in the news about different ideas about settlement structures, bankruptcies, all these kind of things. So I think there's a lot of action coming, I think, early in the year. A lot of things I think are going to come to a head in 2026.
And another big thing that they're talking about is releasing that new product onto the market, getting Roundup off the market altogether. So usually what we see in mass torts is the defendants want to end the liability. So the way they can start trying to do that, even though we have the latency, is pulled from the market. So it seems like the next 2 months, we probably won't hear anything about any verdicts or big numbers, but going into 26, we'll really see what their strategy is. And then we'll have to wait to see, are we getting big numbers and verdicts, or did these, you know, cases just disappear off the docket? What does that usually mean when they are set for trial and then disappear from that trial setting?
So it's probably one of two things. One, we're starting to, you know, see some movement in discussing broader settlements, because there are also some cases, and I didn't mention this, I failed to, set in Cole County coming up. So you start to see, you know, is some movement on broader dockets. And sometimes it might just simply be it's a really great plaintiff and there is no circumstances where they want that plaintiff tried. So both of them are always a possibility. But generally speaking, you know, and this is true for any mass tort, when you start seeing, you know, the trial picks picked off, there might be some settlement discussions going on.
Yeah, and that's what we've talked about here before on Tort Talk. It's these trial dates that really lead the settlements in the mass torts, right? If we can't get those dates set and apply the pressure to the defendants, these cases just drag on forever. So it's exciting to hear from you about how many trials we have set coming up in 26. And I think that really changes the whole dynamic of the litigation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the old adages always remain true. You know, when we first started doing personal injury cases years ago, if it was a car wreck, you'd say, hey, go get a trial date as soon as possible. Those trial dates settle cases. And even though we're talking about a much grander scale and much more complicated than a car wreck, certainly the old adage of getting trial dates moves cases still stands true to this day.
Yeah, and one thing you talked about was the Solicitor General. I know there's no deadline for that, but even if it does, you know, go up to the Supreme Court, we're expecting this decision before June, which is going to be the end of the term. So in my mind, I'm seeing about 8 months left in this litigation. Do you see it going longer than that?
Well, I think the Solicitor General piece really is targeting the failure to warn cause of action. I think design defect is another cause of action, and in some states it's good for plaintiffs. Some states it's tough for plaintiffs to show. There's negligence and things like that. Even if it all went in Monsanto's favor, that necessarily ends the litigation. But I do think it's part of what they're piecing together to put pressure to bring the numbers in the range that they would prefer them to be, certainly, and just, you know, part of their overall strategy.
Yeah, and so that's a really important aspect of it. They're appealing up to the Supreme Court, the preemption, which is, like you said, the failure to warn on the state level. But each of these complaints or petitions, there's maybe half a dozen or a dozen causes of action. So even if they win, even if they knock out that failure to warn, a lot of these states are still going to be viable, and there's still going to be cases that you could have causes of action that said you could go to trial and win on, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there have been cases tried simply on design defect theories, you know, not dealing with the failure to warn. So yeah, I mean, there's other avenues to try the case for sure.
Great intel. I mean, this is a case that's been around for a long time. It seems like we're finally like close to the finish line, as close as you can be. I really appreciate you joining us today, giving us this intel, letting everybody know what's going on with Roundup. Good luck for the remainder of 25 and into 26, and hopefully we have a positive outcome.
And then if the audience has any questions about Roundup and wants to get a hold of you, what's the easiest way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, shoot an email to my email. It's scrompton@cromptonpancoast.com. Happy to talk to anybody. And again, appreciate y'all having me on. You guys, important function to getting the information out to everybody and helps us do our job too. So thank you all for what you do, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So thank you.